I'm Jason Gilbo, J Gilbo 11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 14-game MLB slate, and it once again features a Coors game. It also features plenty of other offenses to target some possible stack situations. If you're looking for pitching info, we have our pitcher nail down up on the site, so you can check out all the arms that we're looking at, aka Jake Arrieta.
There's
Jumping
there's
into
a
the
nice
games.
there's a nice little Conor McGregor reference
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So don't miss that. Check it out.
You got to stay around late in the podcast for that one, but it comes. You don't want to miss it. Look at
And
the games here, Phillies and Nationals. Obviously, with Joe Gonzalez going up against the Phillies, you're not looking at any Phillies guys on that side. But on the Washington side, a nice 4.5 Vegas run total. Obviously, going up against Hellickson. The Washington bats don't necessarily excite me outside of Bryce Harper and Daniel Murphy. They're the lefties that can really give damage to Hellickson, just because Hellickson's really not that good of a pitcher anyway. But
mhm.
are you looking at kind of anyone else here?
I mean, Ryan Zimmerman sort of smushed in between those. He hasn't been very good this year, but I think that's an interesting way to go about a stack. But again, it's not a perfect game. I think we're sticking to tournaments and cash for Bryce Harper. I like him if you can figure out a way to pay up for him.
Yeah, I mean, he consistently delivers you points. Daniel Murphy as well. Those two lefties are really getting the job done. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Zimmerman being the call there, smushed in between. Michael Taylor, if you need a cheap leadoff guy, I don't necessarily mind him, just because Hellickson's not great against right-handers. Going back to 2014, he's allowed a 358 WOBA with a 35% hard ball rate. So Taylor's in a good spot, righty on righty matchup, even though you don't prefer it with him. Still, he's super cheap. He'll be able to pay off that price tag.
Right.
So, moving on here, taking a look at the White Sox and Blue Jays, Jose Quintana, Marco Estrada, over under of 8. This one, I'm treating as GPPs. Are you on the same boat?
Yeah, again, we just don't know with this Toronto team right now. I mean, any day they could go for like 8 to 10 runs, but it's just tough to trust them right now. But again, talent's there, especially for tournaments. Even a mini stack here, I wouldn't hate, but again, strictly tournaments.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think Quintana, the way he's been pitching, has been great. But obviously, Toronto has that track record of just mashing left-handers. And one guy who really catches my eye as far as pricing goes is Edwin Encarnacion.
Hmm.
Went for the long ball last night, 3,700 on DraftKings, very cheap.
Right.
Quintana's, a good lefty, but he's not better than Sale, that's for sure. And Encarnacion is a hell of a hitter. So um, getting Arrieta into a lineup, Encarnacion's going to be right there with him just because of that price tag. You're getting an elite first baseman at a true discount.
Absolutely. Yeah, batting fourth in the lineup for 3,700 and a solid player in his own right. So things lining up for him for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all over him. And as you mentioned, looking at 1 through 6, those are guys that are all going to be in play. Tulowitzki's still
Hmm.
pretty cheap. Bautista cheap in comparison. Donaldson's the only one who's kind of appropriately priced on this lineup.
Right.
So on the other side here, I'm kind of looking at Marco Estrada to target, hitters against or to target him in GPPs as far as a pitcher goes. I'm not looking for too much out of him. He can be a bit home run prone at times. 1.34 to right-handed bats. Um, I guess Todd Frazier and Jose Abreu just stand out because of their price tag, both sitting at 4,000 DraftKings and still fairly cheap on FanDuel, especially Abreu. In this ballpark, it's solid for them, and I think the matchup is kind of a boom or bust situation for them.
Yeah, I'm not seeing too much appeal for me here. Um, Obviously you like Abreu, but I'm just I don't know. I don't see
Does
much.
this game really bum you out? You got
This game
so
bums me out,
impressed.
man. Once I got to the White Sox, I was like, eh.
Your mood completely changed. But yeah,
Anyway.
that is how the White Sox make you feel. They're winning games somehow, but their offense has really been an
Hmm.
average or subpar, I guess you could say,
Right.
most days. So next one here, Braves and Red Sox, big 8.5 over under. Obviously, expecting most of that to come from the Red Sox side, as they have a 5-run total. And I think you can kind of treat this game as a cheaper course tonight as far as the Red Sox go because they do come at a discount. and you're also getting them in a great matchup against Bud Norris. Well, sure, it's not Coors. Fenway's still decent for providing runs and extra base hits. Um, the matchup against Bud Norris is really in favor for me. Been average against right-handers. Lefties have absolutely crushed him with the 360 WOBA. So you're looking at all those guys. Travis Shaw had a big night last night. He's going to probably slide down the order to sixth again. Obviously, Brock Holt, Jackie Bradley Jr., all one-offs, great for cash games for me. And obviously, you're looking at that 1 through 5 stack there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're paying up for Arrieta tonight, if the weather does hold up, this is an interesting team to go about that you could find some cheaper options in. So even the cheaper guys, like you mentioned, Travis Shaw and even a Brock Holt-ish type guy, I think those are intriguing options.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Bogaerts is one guy that catches my 3,900 on DraftKings. Not too badly priced on FanDuel as well. Sitting there at 3,700. I know it's more expensive in comparison to the top guys, but he is at a slight discount from guys like Trevor Story. If you wanted to make a pivot, I think he's in a great spot hitting third to do some damage tonight.
Definitely.
So pretty favorable. As far as the other side of things go, are you looking to target anyone? I mean, there's some cheap bats on this Atlanta side. It is a knuckleballer situation. But also I think it's pretty boomer bust.
Yeah, I'm just not trusting Atlanta right now. I can understand if you're going with some of the cheaper bats there, but I'm probably staying away from them tonight.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with you there. 7-10 Athletics and Tigers, over under of 8. But you and I on the pitcher pod, we're looking at these two arms, and it's kind of like on a full slate, we're like, do you really want to target either of these guys in as far as hitters go?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of this entire game, I just don't feel comfortable sort of going at either of these guys, but I don't feel comfortable rostering the pitchers either. So, I mean, yeah, I'm staying away from them as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think the only guy that maybe catches my eye is Chris Coughlin, just because he's so cheap and playing second base, third base, depending on what site you're on. He would be the only one to catch. He had a home run robbed. He was heavily owned last night. It was disappointing, but
that was a rough one.
He's been crushing the ball lately.
It did feel good though, as a guy who owned him, because I knew we were all together. Because I just would look at the ownership percentage and like, all right, guys, we can get through this one. It's all right.
But if you miss the cut by like 2 points, you're looking back at that and you're like, oh my god,
rough.
So yeah, not really looking at any of these guys here. I mean, obviously Sonny Gray, tougher one to pick on. Verlander's kind of lost a little bit of a step, but he's been actually pretty tough on left-handers, throughout his career. So Verlander not really, or the A is not really in play for me.
Yeah.
So next one you got here, Reds and Mets, 7.5 over under. Matt Harvey taking on John Moscott. Moscott, small sample size, but has been hit hard by lefties in his career. 361 WOBA, obviously through just 10 innings, but 2.53 homers per 9. So they've really tattooed him. This Mets side, it's an interesting stack tonight. Just because they have so many lefty bats, and if Cespedes comes back to the lineup and is healthy, you're looking at really 1 through 6 that are all very playable.
Yeah, and I mean, with Granderson, Conforto, and Duda, you have some pretty interesting lefties in this lineup. So, I mean, a 1-3-5 sort of move there would be interesting. And you actually don't spend that much money. So, definitely an interesting way to attack Moscott tonight.
Yeah, they definitely don't break the bank, so that's a good point. And Neil Walker's a guy who I kind of like as well. Hitting after duty, he's had some nice power numbers of late. On this red side, you're looking at a pretty low total. I know Matt Harvey hasn't been the best. I just think at their prices on FanDuel, you can fade them. DraftKings with their dynamic, obviously Votto at 3,400s, appealing, but I don't know.
I think you're probably forcing it a little bit if you're trying to figure out something with the Reds tonight. I mean, maybe on a smaller slate you could do something to shift things around, but tonight it's probably there's better options.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. So really look at the Mets side more than anything. Next one here, you got Orioles and Rays in Tropicana, over under a 7. This is a spot where you don't expect a ton of runs to come from this game. Both Vegas run totals are under 4. Obviously, I'm not really picking on any of the Orioles guys. Adam Jones is the only one I might take a look at in tournaments just because he's hit lefties pretty well. Machado's on absolute fire. Those are the only two real names that pop out for me as far as the Baltimore side.
Yeah, I think you're looking at those two. I mean, Adam Jones, that's a nice price for him. So you're definitely looking at that, but not necessarily looking to stack.
Yep, no, I definitely agree. Mark Trumbo, he's another name who has some power, pretty cheap price takes at lefty as well. So really those guys are the only ones I consider. The Rays side, they're all very cheap. I think if you have Arrieta rolling out there, a punt play like Brad Miller isn't a bad option.
Forsythe, yeah.
Yep, yeah, Forsythe, great play. Dickerson continues to be very cheap. I'll definitely be looking at him.
Yeah, again, they're all super cheap. So they're all pretty much under 3,500 other than Forsythe. So yeah, that's definitely something interesting for Arrieta lineups.
Yep, definitely. Outside of that, I think it's pretty unappealing as far as big runs go.
Yeah.
Next one, you get Yankees and Rangers, 9.5 over under.
Mm.
Martin Perez, CC Sabathia. This one, you got two lefties on the hill against really both sides are really heavily left-handed. So that is interesting to see how this one shapes up. Just to see what kind of lineups move and see if anyone steps up into the top half of the order that usually doesn't hit there. And I'm kind of looking at the case. It could be maybe Elvis Andrus, Delano DeShields if they maybe pop up in the order. See if Odor and Mazara head down. I'd be curious to see if that happens. That would make them interesting value plays on tonight's slate.
Yeah, and I don't think you're worried about either of these pitchers. Really, they've both kind of struggled. So both of these lineups are in play, and definitely the 3, 4, 5s in both could bring some strong results.
Yeah, definitely. Look at CC Sabathia. He's allowed a 377 WOBA since 2014 to right-handed bats with a 1.68 home runs per 9. Adrian Beltre is one who really catches my eye. Here has hit lefties well. Ian Desmond's a GPP play. Obviously, the outfield position is not appealing for Desmond's quality, but overall, I think he's actually a pretty strong GPP option. And another name I want to toss out is Starlin Castro if he sneaks up into the top of the order. That's a good spot for him as well.
Yeah, I like that call. I like Castro tonight.
Yeah. Anyone else you're looking at from that Yankees side?
No, again, I think Beltran, Teixeira, and McCann are all relatively cheap, so I kind of like those guys against Perez. But other than that, I mean, I'm okay with both sides here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Next game, 8:05, Cubs and Brewers. Taylor Youngman, Jake Arrieta, 6.5 over under, but at 6.5, where do you think it's going to come from?
Jesus. I mean, minus 350 as we talked about on the pitcher pod. But yeah, definitely want to stack all Brewers tonight. I think no, just kidding. Obviously you're not looking at any Brewers tonight, but I mean, you were mentioning something about the weather for Chicago and their field.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at the wind blowing in yet again today, which is a cause for concern for really all bats there. Obviously, Arrieta is just enough of a concern for the Brewers ones, but you look at last night. I mean, Fowler on any other day that the wind's not blowing in hits a grand slam on that sac fly is disappointing. So that's what it can take away from hitters right now. So if they get it up in the air, those home runs that may make it over on any other day aren't in tonight's weather. Yesterday we saw the line drop or the over-under drop quite a bit as the day moved on. So that is something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on that Chicago team total to see if it drops. Because if it is, that kind of makes me a little less worry, or it makes me worry a little more about the Chicago bats. But overall, I still think 1 through 6, they're a strong team, regardless against Youngman, who's been quite average in his career against lefties.
Definitely, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, keep in mind the wind, but obviously, I think there is some intriguing stacking options for the Cubs tonight.
Definitely. I mean, I think Fowler and Hayward, I mean, both of them under 4,500. Fowler's been actually up in price quite a bit on DraftKings just because he's been so hot lately. Obviously, Bryant and Rizzo, they have that power. They can get it up and out of there. But overall, I think, as you mentioned, 1 through 6 is solid, but they don't, it's not as appealing as it could be, I guess.
Right. I mean, for how Bryant's played this year, I mean, obviously he's had a few big games, but for 4,500 on DraftKings, it's just a little pricey for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's better third basemen and better spots.
Hmm.
You got two in the Coors game. You obviously have Beltre as well, that are kind of in appealing spots.
Right.
So wouldn't be surprised to see them go off, but I'm also not going to be jamming and forcing them into my lineups tonight.
Hmm.
Arrieta is the only one I'll be doing that with.
Yes, jamming, thrusting Arietta into our lineups.
All right, let's take it easy. 8-10 Indians and Twins. Josh Tomlin versus the rookie Breos there.
Hmm.
8.5 over under. This one's interesting. I think Vegas is expecting runs. I'm not necessarily in the same thinking as Vegas. I don't think there's going to be a ton of runs in this game. I know both offenses are capable of putting it up, but also these two pitchers can punch guys out and can limit runs. So on a full game slate, I'm not really putting too much stock into any of these two lineups.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on in this game. I do think it's kind of sneaky with Barrios in there, but um, they're not too strong on either side, so it's kind of tough to really stack there. I do think the heart of the Indians lineup is really cheap, like Napoli 2,800. So stuff like that, I think you can fool around with, but I wouldn't go too heavy on either side here.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the buzz that Barrios is getting, you maybe can look at a Cleveland stack to see if maybe he falters in his debut,
Hmm.
which could be interesting because he is generating some buzz just because he is a top prospect and is potentially going to be a rookie of the year type player going forward. So definitely an interesting swerve if you wanted to make that move. And they are
Hmm.
pretty cheap, as you mentioned.
Right.
And as far as the Twins side, I'm looking to actually target Tomlin in tournaments. But with his home run proneness, you can look at guys like Brian Dozier, Miguel Sano. I don't see any other ones with true tremendous pop. Those would be the only two that are cheap if you're kind of looking for boomer bust plays. But the wind is blowing in there as well.
Right.
So outside that, I think that 8.5 over under is a little bit faulty for me.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. I don't think we can necessarily trust Vegas with this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Next one here, you got Pirates and Rockies, 10.5 over under. John Neese versus John Gray. Um,
You guys know the deal.
yeah, just pretty forward. We saw McCutcheon last night, 3 homers. Um, John Jaso really catches my eye hitting leadoff at 3,600 on DraftKings. Um, I mean, for a guy who's going to hit leadoff in cores against Gray, he just pairs so well with an area of the lineup. That's a steal. I mean, that's an absolute steal.
Yeah. Yeah. And Freeze, another nice value tonight again. Cervelli even at batting fifth. I think all those guys are a nice cheap way to get Coors sort of bats in there.
Yep, no, I definitely agree. And Gray has struggled so far at the big league level, obviously, because Coors is not going to help his cause there. But he's allowed plenty of home runs. He's allowed a 350 WOBA over 350 to lefties and righties so far.
Hmm.
So really looking, 1 through 6 there with those Pirates bats. Obviously, you mentioned Freeze; he's a great value. Um, as far as the Rocky side of things go, you can look at guys like Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado, Mark Reynolds, and GPPs. Nick Hundley, if he's in the lineup catching, is an interesting cheap catcher option as well.
Yeah, that's a high powered stack right there. I mean, those are the ones if you're being a weirdo and not paying up for Arietta, I mean, this is probably one of the main places you're looking first.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at John Neese, he's allowed a 330 WOBA. It's a right-hander since 2014. So
Hmm.
your average lefty who's maybe going to be decent at PNC Park, but this is Coors. This is the belly of the beast. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck, Neese.
Poor man.
Take a look at those names tonight. But another one, Cardinals and Diamondbacks, this over under actually just went up by 0.5, so it's at 9 right now. Adam Wainwright, Patrick Corbin. Um, God, I mean, Chase Field's been very friendly to hitters. I think it's been very close to being on par with Coors, not necessarily in the home runs factor, but as far as runs go, it's right along those lines so far this season. And yeah, Arizona's Vegas rental just jumped up. It's near 5 right now. So that's actually
Yeah.
that's something to keep an eye on as far as the stat goes tonight. But also 1 through 5, those prices are not bad at all.
Again, we talked about it on the pitcher pod, but Wainwright just doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. Vegas is pointing against him now. It's just a lot of factors are sort of going against him. So targeting Diamondbacks is an interesting way to go tonight.
Yeah, like just something's Wayne wrong with him. It's not Wayne right. I don't know what the
Oh
deal is.
boy.
But
Ooh.
Luke
Ooh.
Jewett, Jake Lamb, Paul Goldschmidt, David
Yeah.
Peralta. Those 4 names really pop out to me. Wellington Castillo is another one who's been hitting the ball well lately. Interesting play here. As far as the Cardinals side of things go, you obviously have the lefty Corbin on the hill. Some righties, if Matt Holliday is in the lineup, he's a cheap guy to look at tonight. Piscotty, Grichuk. I don't even mind Yadier Molina as a cheap catcher option as well.
Yeah, this is actually a nice game in terms of prices. There's a lot of value plays in here other than Goldschmidt. So I think both sides pretty intriguing value wise.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring game, and they just lack the prices that Coors brings. So it's kind of nice to target this one. We're all considering you're paying up for Arrieta, so we're taking those prices into consideration when talking about these bats.
Right.
And this game really does stand out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, we start to break into the 3 later games, and these are ones I'm kind of writing off as far as offense goes, but we can break in and see if we like anyone. Royals and Angels, Chris Young versus Nick Tropiano. Really not a big fan of either side. Chris Young's home run proneness is a little bit limited just being in Angels Stadium. Not necessarily a big fan of his. And there's just not enough lefties in this lineup to get to Chris Young for me.
It's tough because you would want to target these pitchers normally, but these just aren't necessarily the lineups to do that with. So, I mean, Trout obviously always in play, but other than that, kind of probably staying away.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One guy I'll throw out as far as a deep GPP pick is Cole Calhoun, lefty hitting 5th. He's the only one I could see maybe targeting against Chris Young. Or if you're playing that later slate, maybe work him into a lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look, Chris Young, since 2014, is a lot of 347 WOBA to lefties with a 1.55 home runs per 9. The only thing, Angel Stadium is such a bad place for hitters, but Cole Calhoun can do some damage. So if you're looking to be completely contrarian in the full slate or looking for a cash game option late in the game or in the late slate, Calhoun's my guy.
Yeah, I like that call.
So Royal side of things, not a big fan of anyone really. Tropiano's been decent. Their prices are a little bit cheaper, so I think maybe they're a little bit interesting if you want some one-offs. But overall, Tropiano doesn't have any glaring weaknesses for me to directly target on a full slate.
Right, yeah. I think you can pick and choose maybe 1 or 2 guys from there, and I'm okay with that. Moustakas or Lorenzo Cain or something like that, but I wouldn't go too crazy with them.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Next game here, we got Astros and Mariners. Colin McHugh versus Hisashi Iwakuma. Once again, I'm not looking for a ton of production on these two offenses. McHugh has been fairly tough on right-handers. Lefties he's been pretty tough on as well. So overall, I'm not looking at this Mariners offense to do a ton of damage. The one guy who does catch my eye just because he's so cheap and can definitely hit for power is Nelson Cruz on DraftKings at 3,900. He's really the only one that catches my eye just because of the price tag.
Does Cano intrigue you at all for tournaments?
For tournaments, yes. Just because once again, I think the price is more what I'm looking at. McHugh can be prone to blowing up. We obviously saw that at Yankee Stadium versus all those left-handed bats, but that is Yankee Stadium. Those lefties thrive in Yankee Stadium with that short porch out there. A little different out there in Safeco. So I'm kind of limiting my exposure, but I think Cano and Cruz are definitely worth a look.
Yeah, worth a look. But again, there's a lot of lower salaried sort of lineups out there, so there's probably better options, but it's guys to take a look at least.
Yeah, definitely. And on the Houston side, I'm looking at Iwakuma possibly tonight, so I'm not really picking on any Houston bats. Any price tag the guy that you're looking at maybe there?
Usually you love Altuve, but I think this is a little tougher for him tonight. I'm probably just staying away.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Next one here, you got Marlins and Dodgers, and you got two lefties on the hill, Kazmir Nicolino. 7.5 over under. You should see some lineup shifting here with the Dodgers, and you could see Kike Hernandez would become a great value play because he hammers left-handed pitching and usually hits at the top of the order. He becomes an excellent value play in all formats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do like the top of this Dodgers lineup with Utley, Seager, Turner. I think they're all super cheap and could potentially, with Nicolino out there, I think they could bring some solid returns.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think Puig's price tag's a little bit lower than what it should be. So I think he's actually not a bad option as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could see Trace Thompson slip into the lineup. He's actually hammered southpaws. If he hits maybe fifth or sixth or seventh, he'd be worth a look in GPPs. On the other side, we talked about Kazmir not being right on the pitcher pod either, kind of being a Wainwright-esque pitcher right now. Obviously, Stanton's in play for GPPs after essentially ruining every Kershaw owner's night last night with one swing of the bat.
Yeah, I think sort of Stanton and Harper are intriguing because they're probably going to be a little lower owned tonight because of Arrieta. So those are two guys that I think you can target and maybe get a little different with them. So that's not normal. So pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Marcell Ozuna is a guy who's hit lefties pretty well in his career, another cheap outfielder. Vegas is only expecting a 3-run total for Marlins. I'm going to take the over there. I don't think Kazmir's been right. I know the Marlins offense is up and down at times, but I'm going to give them a little more credit than they deserve on tonight's slate.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So that's going to wrap it up here with the slate breakdown. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.